Our next story has a Canadian connection as well. The disturbing tale we've been unraveling all week about the involvement of homegrown terrorists in January's deadly gas plant attack in Algeria. And while the government still is not sharing much information, CBC News is learning more about 3 high school students in southern Ontario and how they ended up going down such a radical path. Adrienne Arsenault begins our coverage again tonight from London, Ontario. Adrienne.
Peter, if you recall yesterday when London's main mosques said they didn't know Ali Medlej or Chris Katsarubis, there's a reason they said that. They probably didn't know them.
CBC has learned that Ali and Chris and Aaron tried out the main mosque. They found the message there too soft. They tried a smaller youth center, also too soft. They were searching for something fiery, radical, and dangerous. They did a lot of searching and a lot of changing. Consider the start. Sir George Etienne Cartier Elementary School for Chris Katsarubis. In the so-called Conflict Coolers Club, a child trying to keep the peace in schoolyards. Terrorism hardly in that heart yet. And the seemingly always smiling Aaron Yoon, whose jail time overseas now is still unexplained. A woman who worked with Aaron twice in 2008 and 2011. That's key because it's within those years that he changed.
He just didn't have that spark. He wasn't that friendly, outgoing guy anymore. He just seemed lost and kind of dead inside. He had a lot of friends. He was very sociable, but then he didn't want to talk to anyone. He didn't open up to anyone. It was just him and his religion and the job. That's it.
Trouble at work and home seems a common theme. We spoke with a man who knew the young men well. He said that all 3 blamed their inability to hold down jobs on employers and co-workers who didn't understand they needed to pray 5 times a day, who didn't understand that they needed time off on Fridays. He said they complained that no one seemed to get them, even at home. He insisted that young Aaron complained of getting into fistfights at home, and he maintains that all 3 young men said they felt completely detached from family and friends.
Ali Medlej certainly struggled. That's him in his prom photo. And a good friend told us he distinctly remembers a disturbing conversation with Ali. He was wrestling with wanting to be spiritual, but didn't want to give up girls or drinking. He says Ali told him, "There's things that I just can't give up on in my lifestyle, and it's hard for me to be a practicing Muslim. So why don't I just be a shaheed and go straight to heaven, instead of all the effort that I can't seem to do?" Idle talk? Maybe not. A friend of Ali's says he now cannot forget that in March 2011, something strange happened here in London. Ali did a so-called farewell tour, saying goodbye to those he knew, and then he disappeared.
And that's the timeline that's key here. At that point, if he and Aaron and Chris left London, where'd they go? This was 2 years before the attack in Algeria. Were Chris and Ali training somewhere? Where did they part ways with Aaron Yoon? And once more, crucially, who is it who turned them? Peter?
Adrienne Arsenault in London, Ontario again tonight. Thank you, Adrienne. Well, for more on that last point, we bring in the other half of our reporting team on this story, investigative correspondent Greg Weston in Ottawa. Greg, do we know any more about who turned these men?
Well, Peter, as we continue to piece together this disturbing story, we still don't know how this happened to these young Canadians, but we are starting to learn something about who was responsible for turning them to terrorism. Sources are telling CBC that this was largely the work of one person, one man. This is not somebody operating out of a desert in Africa. In fact, all of this happened right here in Canada, in southwestern Ontario.
We talked last night about Foreign Affairs. Did they have anything to say tonight, the Foreign Affairs Department?
Yes, the government has issued now an official confirmation that they are aware that Aaron Yoon is being held in a jail in North Africa.
All right. The family, of course, as we saw last night, was still kind of questioning that. All right, Greg, thanks very much. Greg Weston in Ottawa.